I was always a very, very slow learner. And I was never a good wrestler, a worker. I was a good listener,
Mm-hmm.
and they would put, in the older days, they would put an experienced wrestler with an inexperienced wrestler. And you have to listen to what they say. That's why the best guy that I had my best matches with, wrestling match, was with Harley Race. And that the thing about Harley Race, when people always brag about Harley Race, because Harley Race could work with a 300-pound man and have a great match, and Harley Race could work with a 200-pound man and have a great match. Now, people talk about Ric Flair. Ric Flair, we call repetitious,
Mm-hmm.
which means if you saw one of his matches, you don't need to see no more. Hogan, my very best friend, repetitious. His matches never changed. But if you watch Harley never had the same match. There were very few guys in this business that was not what they call repetitious. I was watching Hogan match one time. We used to go out the bleacher. We used to hide underneath the bleacher and watch the match before us because we didn't want to repeat what was done before. So every wrestler in the old days would watch the match before there, so they don't do the same thing. So like if you go out there and you work a headlock, then I'm going to go out, I'm going to work the arm. And the next guy would come out and work the leg. But we didn't want, and that's why people don't like wrestling now, because it's written by one person. Well, one person got one idea,
Yeah.
So every match going to be similar, going to have a similarity because it's coming out of one thing. It's kind of like Kool-Aid. You got green Kool-Aid, you got red Kool-Aid, but the taste is still pretty much the same. Whereas if you go to there's a difference between ginger ale and Coca-Cola, but it's no difference between Coca-Cola and Pepsi. And that's what is missing, because what Vince McMahon. I know I'm all over the place, but
No.
Yeah, like right now with Vince McMahon, none of the wrestlers can work because Vince don't want them to learn how to work. This is because what Vince does, they write out everything on a piece of paper of what they want to do. Every move is written out. Every word that comes out of their mouth is written out by a couple of writers. So it's not coming from the wrestler himself. It's coming from whoever Vince hired to write that match. Whereas in the older days, the only thing they would tell you in the older days, because we have separate dressing rooms,
You'd have referees go back and forth, wouldn't you?
Huh?
You'd have referees go back and forth to pass messages.
Yeah, you're right. They used a referee because he was the only one who could walk out in front of the crowd and go from dressing room to dressing room about people. See, when I first started, George Scott in Anderson, South Carolina, where I had my first match, July the 10th, 1975 was my first match. They would give you other matches, but they call them what they call like dark matches, to get used for the crowd. He said, Tony, let me tell you something. He said, every person out there believes that wrestling is fake. It is your job to prove that it's not. So if you have a match and people forget, a good worker is like this. You go to a horror movie. It's a horror movie, right? And Jason is standing behind the door with a big old butcher knife. Now you are in a theater. You know you're in a theater. You know you're at a movie. And then just as the girl go to open the door, you holler out, watch out. That's a good movie.
Mm-hmm.
Because you forget. See, wrestling is turning fantasy into reality. So not Vince Sr., but Vince Jr. eliminate reality. He came into because people love fantasy, because all of us, America, were raised in the world of fantasy. It started with Santa Claus. And for the first 12 years of every American life, they was in the world of fantasy. But that is like planting a seed in the ground. Every year you cut that, you destroy that plant, but every year it come back because that seed been planted. And whatever you put into a child while they're very, very young stays in that child for the rest of his life. Mm-hmm. So when we lose Santa Claus, we spend the rest of our life trying to replace Santa Claus. You understand what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And that's what wrestling was all about. So people wanted to believe in something. We constantly look for something that we could believe in. So anyway, make a long story short, he says it's your job to make people believe that what you're doing is for real. So we did certain things, like when you hear the term lay it in, that means do it for real. That's what it meant. Do it for real. One of the things, if you watch my press slam, one of the things that I used to hate for a guy to help me, there's a picture of me where the guy will hold his arms out like this. But they want the people to see that I'm doing it. If a lot of guys were pushing off the shoulders, people could see that. So I said, don't push off. No matter what you do, I could get you up. Don't push off. And if they pushed off, you ask anybody that worked with me, I used to get angry about it because I want the people to believe that what I did for real. Another thing the little trick, they call it ring psychology. Another time I was arrested, George Two-Ton Harris. George Two-Ton, and we call him Bunk Harris. And you know how the guys get up on the rope and hit the guy in the head 10 times?
Yes.
And the people would count. I done that. George Scott come back, and he was mad as hell at me. He said, Tony, you just smarten up everybody in the audience. I said, what? The people were cheering. He said, yes, they cheer while you were doing it, but then they get in their car. And this is what they say when they get in the car. Now, you know that's fake. If Tony Atlas hit him that many times, he'd kill him. No, he said, your arms, he said, you too big and too strong looking to throw that many punches. He said, never throw more in a 15-minute match. I don't ever want you to go past 7 or 8 punches. That's why you watch my match, you don't see me throw a lot of punches. Yeah. Because this is how he explained it to me. He said, he asked me, he said, Tony, how much you bench press? At that time, I was doing about 525. I told him I'd do 500. He said, how big is your arm? I said, oh, about 21, 22 inches. He said, who in their right mind going to believe that a guy could bench press 500 pounds, 22-inch arm, and hit a guy in the head 10 times and don't even leave a mark? He said, if his wife hit him in the face 10 times, she would leave a bruise. Either he the toughest SOB walking the face of earth, or you the biggest wimp walking the earth. He said, the more punching you throw, Tony, it don't make you look stronger. It make you look weaker. Mm-hmm. If you bigger than your opponent, the more you do to your opponent, the weaker you look. It don't make you look stronger. So that's why the heel was always bigger than the babyface, because the babyface could do a lot to it. I can hit a big man. If I'm fighting John Studd, I can do a lot more to John Studd than I can do to Fit Finley to make it believable. Nobody gonna believe that Fit Finley could take that type of punishment. That's why in the olden days, when I gave somebody a press slam, I'm 6'2", and I slammed him, the guy didn't get up. Because the people believe that if you really fell, because most people have been around people that fell off a roof, they have fell out, putting in, out of a chair and end up in the hospital. So they figure you're going to suffer something for falling from, let me see, 6'2", when I stretch my arm, what you talking about, 7 feet? Mm-hmm. So, you fall 7 feet out the air. Most people will believe that you get hurt. They won't believe that you could get up that easily. Mm-hmm. You understand what I'm saying? Yeah. When Jimmy Snuka was 265, 270 pounds, when Jimmy Snuka jumped off the top rope, they used to carry him out in a stretcher, if you remember. Mm-hmm. Because nobody could believe that 270 pounds could fall on you and you get up. Now you go drop a 18-wheeler on these guys, they get up and drop kick you. Nothing is believable. See, a punch, a move is only effective as your opponent sells it. Ernie Ladd said, get the most mileage out of everything. I was wrestling Captain Redneck Dick Murdoch one time, and I was working his arm. I would pound his arm, headbutt his arm, do everything his arm. Well, anyway, Murdoch gonna get some heat on me. So Murdoch hit me with his, cause you ever notice guys always work on the left. Mm-hmm. They work from the left. And he hit me with his right arm. He threw one punch with his left arm. He started selling it. Ah. He took his hand and stuck it down in his trunk so that he don't have to use it no more. And he fought me he finished the match with one arm. He never used that left arm. Because as soon as he do something with that left arm, people are going to say, see, I told you it was fake. See, our job was not to wrestling, the best way to explain what I'm trying to say is like a musician. You know it's a trick to pulling the rabbit out the hat. Now, you would keep paying to see that trick until you know how it's done.
Exactly.
Once you learn how it's done, you're not going to do that no more. So that was our thing. When I used to get juice, we used to take razor blades and cut our head. You know that. Mm-hmm. And we would stop at that time was 7-Eleven. They didn't have all the convenience store there, but 7-Eleven was around during the 70s. The guy would ask me, he said, Tony, what beer do you drink? They did not want to see me. They didn't want the fans to see me walking around a convenience store, and I'm okay. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah,
when they used to do stuff like hurt somebody in the ring and you're supposed to be hurt, when you come in the dressing room, the boys got your bag packed. In the older days, they would pack your bag for you. You would go in the dressing room, out the back door, in your car, out of town. They did not want one person to see that you are not hurt. Because if that one person, if one person sees you hurt, 100 people know. Because that one person going to tell at least 10 people, and them 10 people going to tell another 10 people, and by the time you come back to town, everybody know it was bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
So that was like if you was a heel, a bad guy, and I'm babyface, good guy, and I got this wonderful hotel that I like staying at, but you get there first, and you check in, and I see you checking in, I couldn't stay in that hotel with you. I couldn't ride with you. They're right on. I like watching your program because these guys are always talking. I'm gonna tell you something that is real strange.
Cool.
The only guys that anybody ever talk about for some odd reason are heels. Mm-hmm. 90% of the people being talked about are not the baby faces. Ain't that something? But I listen to these heels talk about baby faces. We couldn't ride together. So how you know about? I know nothing about the heels. I couldn't be around them. The only time that I was around Dutch Mantel was in the ring. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. I wasn't in a dressing room in Puerto Rico. In Puerto Rico I was, but things was a little bit different. But like in the 70s, if I got caught with Dutch Mantel in the 70s, they would fire both of us.
Yeah.
You get fired just to be around him. So they had separate dressing room, and we had to stay separate all the time. We couldn't be around each other. If I go to a gym and the heels are in that gym, I can't work on that gym. Back in my day, they were called expose. Mm-hmm. And that's why people used to ask the question, is wrestling fake? They knew it was, but it wasn't certain. It was like the mask guy. Who's under that mask? And we always kept the people in suspense. So they kept coming back week after week after week, not to watch the wrestling, but to catch us. Because we love to succeed in America, and probably England too. It's not an American thing, it's a human thing.
I've got to ask you this, right? So do you remember, this was before the Dr. D, John Stossel slap thing, but like in maybe around 80, 81, in the I'm trying to think if even you were in the WWF then, but do you remember camera crews trying to catch out the wrestlers like in the 70s and 80s, turning up news cameras and stuff like that, trying to catch wrestlers out?
Well, with Vince, especially in the 80s, he had everybody sign a certain contract. And nobody wanted to get sued by Vince. Vince knew how to protect. Most promoters knew how to protect their promotion. So if you're a camera guy, all that footage, everything in that building belonged to Vince. Mm. So you didn't have no access to it. Like when Vince have a meeting, he have a guy that's Pet Palliser or Chief J Strongbow or Tony Guerrero would stand at the door, and all the wrestlers had to put their cell phones in this little basket. You couldn't take your cell phone into a meeting because we are, like you said, we are addicted to this phone. Mm-hmm. So you're going to send the picture to your girlfriend or to your best friend, right? Now, everybody knows what's going to go on before the show. And Vince wrestling believed in the ultimate surprise, which means if the people already, like a movie, if you know how the movie going to end, you gonna go see it? No. So that, we have what we call ring psychology. But what Vince do, we had writers to write things down for guys. That way, the new wrestler would never learn how to work. You can't plan a match in the dressing room. You can't plan a match in the dressing room and be successful out in front of the crowd. You don't know that crowd.
Mm-hmm.
You can have the greatest match in the world in New York City. Take that same match to Texas, and it sucks. Because people in Texas are not the same as people in New York. Yeah. That's why people say, well, I don't like the new wrestling. Because they don't know how to work the audience. You can't have one match to suit everybody in the world. Since the beginning of time, there had never been a human being born with the same fingerprint or the same DNA.
Unless they're identical twins, in which case they do have the same fingerprints, yeah.
So that tells you right there that everybody don't have the same like.
Mm-hmm.
You love steak. I like steak. I like man medium. You like yours rare. He like his well done, but we like steak. But I can't give everybody the same cook the steak the same for everybody and please everybody. That is wrestling. They used to have me listen to. We didn't know what we were gonna do. The only thing, when I used to wrestle, I never knew what I was gonna do until I got in the ring. I knew who was gonna win. I knew who was gonna lose. That was it. We knew nothing else. We ad-lib everything. That's why it was so realistic, because we would listen to people. Like if I'm doing something and the people is liking it, I keep doing it. If I do something and they fought on it, I try to cover it up and get away from it as quick as I can. Mm-hmm. That's working. And then I would go to another state. I go to another state and I would do a total different thing, because it's not the same people. Mm-hmm. You see, and that's what made old time wrestler so believable. We did less because by doing more, it's not believable. You ever watch a cartoon? When you
plenty.
Was a kid?
I'm plenty in the,
Roll,
in the day.
You watch Roll Runner?
Yeah, oh yeah.
That's today's wrestling. Think about it. The Roll Runner pushed a big boulder on top of the coyote. He gets up. You understand? He runs over with a car. He gets up with the threat marks on him. It is meant not to be believable. So what Vince did to make his wrestling, what's called wrestling entertainment, he made it at least a believer as possible. You know?
Yeah. Tony,
he put belts. Yeah, he put belts on guys that can't whoop their way off a wet paper bag. You know, Shawn Michaels and CM Punk just proved that. How long that CM Punk match went?
What, in UFC?
Yeah.
Oh, not very long.
Yeah.
One of them, I'm going to blow your mind here with CM Punk, right?
Yeah,
he lost one quickly in the first round, and then he was beaten handily in 3 rounds by the second worst UFC fighter of all time, which was then overturned into a no contest because the guy who beat him tested positive for weed. So technically CM Punk is 1-0-1.
Now, in 1975, if he had lost, guess what would have happened to him?
He would have been fired and then beaten up probably as well.
No, he got fired.
Yeah.
Would not get booked. You could lose a fight to another wrestler in the older days, but not to a non-wrestler. You could not lose a fight to Muhammad Ali and keep your job. You couldn't lose a fight to Mike Tyson and lose your job. You could lose a fight to Ric Flair, you could lose a fight to Bruiser Brody, but not a non-wrestler.